Have you ever wondered what lies beneath the surface of Japan's rich culture and technological advancements? This is a question that might have crossed your mind as you marveled at the country's impressive achievements. Indeed, Japan stands as a beacon of progress and tradition, a country where ancient customs and cutting-edge technology exist side by side. But what if I told you that there's a side to Japan that's often hidden from the rest of the world? A side that, like a shadow, quietly looms behind its vibrant facade? This is the concept we'll be exploring today, the dark side of Japan. Now, don't get me wrong, Japan, like any other country, is not without its share of problems and issues. It's simply that these challenges are often overshadowed by its cultural beauty and technological prowess, making them less apparent to the casual observer. Think of it as a beautiful painting. From afar you see a masterpiece, but as you get closer you begin to notice the imperfections, the tiny cracks in the canvas, the smudges in the paint. They don't necessarily detract from the overall beauty of the painting, but they add a layer of complexity and depth that's often missed at first glance. And just like that painting, Japan's dark side doesn't diminish its charm. Rather, it adds a layer of depth to our understanding of this fascinating country. This dark side is not just a recent development but a part of Japan's history, stretching back centuries. From the feudal era marked by bloody wars and social unrest, to the cataclysmic events of World War II, and even to present-day issues, this darker aspect of Japan's history has been woven into the fabric of its society. As we peel back the layers of Japan's history, a different picture begins to emerge. So buckle up, for we are about to embark on a journey through time, delving into the hidden shadows of Japan's past and present. Rewinding to the feudal era, a time of samurai and shoguns, reveals a harsh reality. This was a period of Japan's history that was defined by a rigid social structure, where power was concentrated in the hands of a few, and violence was a common means of asserting dominance. The feudal era was characterized by a strict caste system. At the top were the shoguns, the military dictators, and underneath them were the daimyo, or the landholding lords. They held immense power and controlled the samurai, the warrior class who served them. Below these were the peasants, artisans, and merchants, who had little to no power in this hierarchy. The samurai were bound by a strict code known as Bushido, or the way of the warrior. This code demanded loyalty, courage, and above all, honor. While this may sound noble, the implications of this code were often brutal. A samurai was expected to die rather than bring dishonor upon himself or his lord. This concept, known as seppuku or ritual suicide, was seen as the ultimate act of loyalty. Furthermore, the feudal era was marked by continuous power struggles and warfare. The Sengoku period, also known as the Age of Warring States, was a time of near-constant conflict as daimyo fought for control. This era was not just about noble samurai and honorable battles, it was a time of brutal violence, political intrigue, and ruthless ambition. The feudal era, while romanticized in many aspects, had its own darkness that still casts a shadow today. It was a time when the value of life was often weighed against the value of honor and power. And while it's easy to get lost in the romanticized vision of samurai and shoguns, it's essential to remember the harsh realities that were part and parcel of this era. Moving forward to World War II, Japan's dark side took a different, more destructive turn. As the world was engulfed in the flames of the Second Global Conflict, Japan was not just a spectator but an active participant. It was during this time that the country exhibited an intense militaristic fervor, with ambitions that extended far beyond its own borders. The bombing of Pearl Harbor in December 1941 is perhaps one of the most infamous chapters of this period. This unprovoked attack on American soil was a strategic move designed to cripple the U.S. Pacific Fleet, drawing the United States into a war they had previously been hesitant to join. This marked the beginning of a series of aggressive actions that would define Japan's role in World War II. Simultaneously, Japan was also embroiled in a full-scale invasion of China. The Nanking Massacre, often referred to as the Rape of Nanking, was a horrific example of the atrocities committed during this time. Tens of thousands of Chinese civilians and disarmed soldiers were brutally killed, while countless women were violated. It was a dark chapter in human history, demonstrating the ruthless side of Japan's military. The treatment of prisoners of war, or POWs, by the Japanese during this period was another grim aspect of the war. Torture, forced labor, and execution were not uncommon. The inhumane conditions and brutal treatment suffered by these POWs stand as a testament to the extreme brutality of the time. These instances are but a handful of examples of the atrocities committed by Japan during World War II. They shed light on the militaristic and ruthless side of a nation, often hidden behind a facade of honor and discipline. World War II, a time of global strife, saw Japan reveal a more militaristic and ruthless side. Even in the modern era, Japan grapples with issues that are often overlooked. As we journey further into the 21st century, we find that Japan, like any other nation, has its share of challenges. These problems, albeit less visible, still cast a shadow on Japan's vibrant culture and advanced society. The first of these issues is the high suicide rate. Japan has one of the highest suicide rates among developed countries. This heartbreaking statistic is often linked to the immense pressure placed on individuals, both in their personal and professional lives. The societal expectation to succeed, to be perfect, can be overwhelming for many, leading to a sense of isolation and despair. This brings us to the next point, the pressures of society. In Japan, the concept of hon and tatame, which translates to true feelings and facade, is deeply ingrained. It's a cultural norm where individuals often hide their true feelings to maintain harmony and avoid conflict. This, however, can lead to feelings of alienation and emotional suppression, contributing further to the country's mental health crisis. The final issue we'll touch upon is the notorious work culture. The term karoshi, meaning death by overwork, has become all too familiar in Japan. Employees are expected to dedicate long hours, often at the expense of their health and personal life. The government has introduced measures to combat this, but progress is slow, and the problem persists. In conclusion, the high suicide rates, societal pressures, and issues surrounding work culture are just some of the challenges Japan faces today. These modern problems, while not as overtly violent as in the past, still represent a darker side of Japan that is worth acknowledging. As we have seen, every nation has its own dark corners, and Japan is no exception. From the hidden shadows that lurk in its folklore and traditions, the feudal era's complex power dynamics, the devastations of World War II, to the modern-day issues that still persist, Japan's history is as multifaceted as it is captivating. It's important to remember that these darker chapters don't define Japan, but rather contribute to its rich tapestry of history and culture. They serve as a reminder of the resilience and strength of the Japanese people, who have navigated through these challenges, shaping the nation we see today. By understanding these aspects, we can appreciate the depth and complexity of Japan's story. We gain insight into not just its triumphs, but also its struggles, allowing us to connect more deeply with its people and its culture. Acknowledging these darker aspects doesn't diminish Japan's beauty and achievements, but rather paints a more nuanced and complete picture of this fascinating country.